And then what we're also finding in a lot of places actually, once a school has been on this journey, all right, they are then quite keen on actually sharing that with other schools, right? Elmore wrote a really interesting piece a few years ago now saying if you want to learn from a school, right, don't go to a school that's performing well. Go to one that's actually been through a journey of improvement, all right? Because they are much more articulate about what you have to be able to do, right? And some of the principals that I've been working with, having been through this journey, get a bit bored by the time everything is hunky-dory. And they really want to sort of take on, supporting other schools. And that's exactly what you saw in the video with Trish, although it wasn't very clear. She became a beacon school. She became supporting other schools, and then eventually went on and led a sort of an action zone project like this. So there seems to be a sort of a sequencing of activity as we actually go through a process of change and really embedding it inside our schools. And once again, we don't know an awful lot about that, but we're beginning to actually get a sense of, a sense anecdotally, and I've already had some conversations this morning about, how we're building our work forward and how we're continuing, what we're doing in order to go deeper. We've just looked at 20 schools in England in both primary and secondary. This is a primary example of a school in inner city Nottingham, which has been very much of a similar profile socioeconomically from the one that Trish led. And we've been looking at and talking to the principals in terms of the phases that they've actually gone through on their school improvement journeys, on their journeys of transformation. And in Diana's school, the first phase was what's called here coming out of special measures. We inspect our schools on a fairly regular basis in England, and if you're not performing adequately, then nasty things happen to you. And one of them is you are put into a special category called special measures, and that is basically about sort of public humiliation because the world knows about it because it's published in the newspapers and so on, and the inspectors come back seems like every month in order to sort of chastise you and sort of give you a good roughing up. It's not a great place to be, really, and often it entails the humiliation is so great that there's a sort of a change of leadership, which is exactly what happened in this situation. And Diana came into a new school. In this instance, there were good reasons that the school was put into special measures. The school was performing badly. The sort of the culture in the school was pretty much off the wall. Kids were all over the place, teaching inconsistent, and so on. So really, the focus for her in the first year and a bit of her principalship was really doing the basic building block things, right? So if you take that list of 8, right, it's unsurprising that she was facing with, establishing a behavior policy, putting the vision and values in, making the school secure, really improving the teaching and learning. So putting some orderliness into the school, right? Now, this is where I disagree a little bit with sort of, I felt that perhaps Vic's analysis was a little bit naive on Wednesday. That is not dead easy to do, right? And requires quite a lot of hard work in what is going to be a fragile and quite demoralized environment. But essentially, what Diana was doing, and we see in all of these examples, you're putting the basic building blocks into place, right? You're putting the basic regularities into place. And without that, you just will not be able to make further progress. And part of the leadership skill, again, it's about diagnosis, right? Where the school actually is, and mixing the recipe for for that school. And no, we can't get into learning, in a whole very sophisticated way here. We've got to get some teaching. We've got to get some orderliness into place. All right. So it's being able to prioritize, and that's what she did. Then, in the second sort of phase of the work, which lasted a couple of years, she called it taking ownership. There was a persisting priority on teaching and learning, becoming a thinking school, a bit more of the performance management, inclusivity, developing the school's mission.